Okay, class, this is a lecture on an example descriptive essay that we have here. And the reason I chose this essay is because it has some good things about it and it has some bad things about it. And, the bad thing about it is it drags in places, and it was meant to be a sermon that a Catholic priest is given a room full of 10-year-old children, trying to just terrify the hell out of them so they stray straight and good. So that's the kind of the negative portions about it. The positive portions about it, though, or things or aspects about it, is that it's when the description's on, it's on. And it also is a good example of how to write a descriptive essay without talking about yourself, with the focus being on the subject. So hopefully you've already read this, and if you do, you'd realize by the end that this sermon is, the goal of this piece is to, scare people straight, so they get into heaven and don't go to this horrible place. The techniques that are used to do that are a lot of our descriptive techniques, which I'll be going over as we go along through this. So the thesis isn't as strong as yours will be, but let's look at the intro real quick. The whole purpose of this essay, which is part of rhetoric, the author's purpose, is the first sentence. Before you lose your soul to sin, let us try for a moment to realize, as far as we can, the nature of that abode of the damned. Essentially hell, right? And so what you'll notice about this descriptive essay is a lot of the main points are already here in the essay. Everything that you can see on your screen, this highlighted blue right there, is going to be the subject of a body paragraph later, or subjects of body paragraphs. But it also foreshadows what you need to do with your descriptive essay, which is keep it in the third person. If you notice, there's no I. The subject is about hell, so that's what the essay is about. It doesn't matter who's talking. Okay, just like your essay, it doesn't matter that you're talking, it's what you say and that you're describing something. Okay, so if you notice, already we have visual and olfactory, or smelling description. Okay, right in the first line already, and this is going to be repeated. Okay, we have the purpose here of why hell exists. All right, we have some more description of what it feels like, what the experience of being hell is. All right. Okay, and we have even pain, as we see here. So we're starting to foreshadow some of the things that we're going to have later. And if you'll notice, certain body paragraphs are a little bit stronger than others. To me, this very first one kind of pops right off the bat. If you'll notice, you have a topic sentence, which is the people of hell lying in exterior darkness. So we know this is going to be about sight. So a lot of this body paragraph is going to be about, that. So, it's interesting, by describing what hell looks like visually, they actually say you can't see anything. There's no light. And that's a really cool description. Personally, I get a little bored in these places when they explain how the darkness works, how God did it, and all that stuff. That's where I'm like, that doesn't really, I don't really care about that. It's not as interesting. And then I feel like it gets a lot more interesting here when it starts talking about the never-ending storm of darkness. And a technique that's being used here in description that you can use as well is what I call the repetition here, and also that James Joyce builds some pacing with these sentences. He says, it's a never-ending storm of darkness, dark flames, and dark smoke. So it kind of started off long with that first phrase, and darkness, and then that repetition real quick of dark flames, dark smoke gives a little speed. And, that to me makes that description pop a little bit, because it's not just about, what you write. It's also about how you write it. Do you create pleasing sounding sentences that have rhythm and flow when you write? All right. This next body paragraph's, I would say probably one of the strongest because of how much description it has. So, your big tools of description are word choice and the visual images that you create, and word choice is called diction. And also and also the five senses. So again, we have this topic sentence that's also a transitional sentence. The first half of the sentence is taking us away from the idea of how dark it is and moving on to the smell. And if you just look at the word choice here, vast, reeking sewer, terrible conflagration, purge, brimstone, intolerable stench, bodies of the damned, pestilential odor, infect the whole world. There's a use of hyperbole here, exaggeration to make a point that the smell of one body can infect the whole world. So what about, all the bodies in hell? Foul, unbreathable, enclosed, foulness again, foul and putrid corpse, laying rotting, decomposing in the grave, jelly-like mass of liquid corruption. Corpse prey to flames, devoured, dense, choking fumes of nauseous, loathsome decomposition, sickening stench, millions upon millions of fetid carcasses massed together in a reeking darkness, a huge rotting fungus. All that is extremely good diction. Not only are we, through describing what things smell like, we're also describing what they look like. And this whole paragraph is almost nothing but description. And it's probably one of the most powerful paragraphs in the whole thing because of this. And that's a good thing. But here's where we come into kind of a bad thing. The second paragraph has a lot of explanation in it. And it's about the physical torment of pain. And so again, we have a transitional sentence and a topic sentence at the beginning where we say, okay, the smell's bad, but the worst thing is the pain. So, it acts as both a transition and a topic sentence, lets us know what it's going to be about. Now, there's also a technique used here where it tells the reader to place your finger in the flame of a candle and you'll feel the pain of fire. And that's a technique called familiarity, where you put something in your writing that almost everybody can relate to because they've done it. All right. But this is where I kind of get lost here. All this kind of junk here that I'm kind of highlighting that you see is an explanation of how the fire of hell works. And to me, that's just not as powerful as the description that you see in this paragraph, where, where it really talks about what the fire does. And again, there's some explanation at the beginning, but if you can see where it really pops is the second half of this paragraph. And this terrible fire will not afflict the bodies of the damned only from without, but each lost soul will be a hell unto itself. The boundless fire raging in its very vitals, okay? So what I want you to listen to is listen to the rhythm. That was a really long sentence. And the rhythm changes and gathers speed as it makes points. So listen how it changes. Oh, how terrible is the lot of those wretched beings. The blood seethes and boils in the veins. The brains are boiling in the skull. The heart and the breast glowing and bursting. The bowels a red-hot mass of burning pulp. The tender eyes flaming like molten balls. See, it picks up speed there because it uses a few techniques that you yourself can use in your descriptive essays. One, this big list device, this comma list device, where you have a list of descriptions. That list, that comma list, adds speed and power to your descriptive essays because it describes a whole lot of things together all at once. Also, we go from a really long sentence to a medium sentence to a sentence made of short phrases combined by commas. So that builds the pacing or the speed of the essay and makes it go faster towards the end. So you can do that with your syntax, the length of your sentences, and also the kind of punctuation you use, like these comma lists. Okay. Also, another technique being used here, a lot of alliteration. Consonants and assonants, you don't need to know that, but consonants is the repetition of vowel sounds. Consonants is the repetition of consonant sounds, and assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. And so we have, these O's and E's and U's and L's and S's and all this stuff, all these different sounds being repeated, and that gives the sentence a more pleasing sound and makes the description pop even more. I think many of us could agree that's probably one of the most powerful parts of the essay there. Now, as you can see, we go on and we go through this pattern of explanation and then this pattern of, really strong description over and over again until we get to the final body paragraph here. And there's a lot of good description here, you know, but a lot of it's explanation, again, of how hell works. And to me, that stuff's good, but it's not as powerful as the description. But one powerful thing that's used here, and a technique you can use in your descriptive essay, is a metaphor. They make a metaphor between, or James Joyce makes a metaphor between what it's like to be in hell and what it's like to have this old biblical punishment for murdering your father. And where they take a person and throw them in a sack with a cock, and by that they mean a rooster, not a severed penis, which is equally horrifying, I must admit, a monkey and a snake. And the idea is that if you were put into a big sack and tied shut and then thrown into the ocean, and then everybody starts drowning, you're all going to be biting and clawing and hurting each other to get out, especially the animals and you. So this metaphor is being used towards what you behave like in hell. You would behave the same way because you're in such pain, even if the person was your father that was next to you, or a loved one or whatever. So that's how metaphor can be used. But this paragraph acts as the conclusion, and here's your sentence that echoes back to the thesis. You know, it's essentially too late for them to repent, so you better not make the same mistake. So the takeaway here is I want you to look at what parts of this essay are powerful and what parts of this essay are weak, based on the description. And also note that it's all third person. The focus is on hell, not the person who's telling us this story. Thank you.